What is a real life fact that blows your mind? There are castles that are less expensive than New York City apartments. The fact that I'm typing this on my phone in a bus going 80 kilometers an hour heading to Helsinki. And within a second this message is readable by people on the other side of the world. Just blows my mind. That in 200 BC an Egyptian scientist was able to determine the Earth's circumference without even leaving the city. This was done by sending a guy to measure the distance between both ends of Egypt and extrapolating this in conjunction with the angle of the sun. In 200 BC. In 1903 the Wright brothers flew for 59 seconds. 38 years later the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. 28 years after that, we landed on the moon. We went from gliding a few feet off the ground for less than a minute to launching rockets out of orbit, traveling for hundreds of thousands of miles, landing on the moon, and then returning, all within a single lifetime. There's enough water in Lake Superior to cover all of North and South America with 1 foot of water. A blue whale's heart is the size of a Volkswagen Beetle. And some of its arteries are big enough for people to swim through. At one point, you were the youngest person in the world. And at one point you will be the closest to death. The amount of energy the sun released in 1 minute is more than the amount of energy all humans have used for our entire history. It makes sense since, well, almost all our energy originated from the sun. When you look at the Andromeda galaxy, you are seeing photons that left 2.5 million years ago and didn't hit anything. Their final destination is your eyeball. The internet. No, I'm not 70 with a walking stick. I'm a web developer, and when I think about how the internet actually works too much, I get a headache. I used my phone as a universal translator the other day to help a customer who spoke Spanish. I spoke English into the Google Translate app and it spoke back to my customer in Spanish. Then I realized I was living in Star Trek. Sort of. I mean, I'll still die from cancer probably. That dinosaurs actually existed. That the Earth used to be a different planet, with so much oxygen in the atmosphere it caused raging wildfires, dragonflies the size of albatrosses, and a moon that was much closer to it. Genghis Khan and his sons were directly responsible for the deaths of up to 50 million people. Low estimates were around 20 million. This was upwards of 10% of the world's population at the time. None of your ancestors, from the first blue-green algae to this moment, died before reproducing. You are the product of billions of years of successfully getting laid. Think of an experience from your childhood. Something you remember clearly, something you can see, feel, maybe even smell, as if you were really there. After all, you really were there at the time, weren't you? How else would you remember it? But here is the bombshell: you weren't there. Not a single atom that is in your body today was there when that event took place. Matter flows from place to place and momentarily comes together to be you. Whatever you are there for, you are not the stuff of which you are made. If that doesn't make the hair stand up on the back of your neck, read it again until it does, because it is important. Everything about language. I find it amazing how language can exist by just sounds, gestures, sign language, or pattern bumps, braille. I find it fascinating to think about how I think in a language and what it could be like to think if I didn't know any language. It just blows my mind. Language or communication or thinking, just the essence of these things and how they work, grow and change amazes me. On the 3rd of March 1876, it rained meat from the sky in Kentucky. For several minutes large chunks of red meat fell from the sky in a 100 by 50 yard area. Meat from the sky, no one knows why. Kentucky meat shower, crazy. 10% of the world's population is illiterate. I know we bash on people we deem dumber than us as illiterate, but it blows me away that there are approximately 700 million people on Earth who can neither read nor write. The odds of shuffling a deck of cards the same way as someone else is 1 in approximately 8 times 1067. It's far more likely that the order in which you shuffled the cards is the first time in history the cards appeared in that order. That's 8 times 10 raised to the 67th power for those who cannot see the superscript. France is statistically one of the nations most successful at war. To quote British historian Niall Ferguson, France has participated in 168 major European wars since 387 BC, out of which they have won 109. drawn 10 and lost 49. This makes France the most successful military power in European history, in terms of number of fought and won, yet they are the ones that takes the most sit for being cowards. The fact that your entire digestive system is open, from mouth to intestines to nuts, someone can stick a camera inside you and see your entire digestive system without cutting you open or performing any type of medical procedure. In 1000 years people will be able to watch videos and look at pictures of their 1000-year-old ancestors. You exchange more bacteria from shaking hands than kissing. Source: Snapple Facts. Curiosity rover. A 2,000-pound SUV-sized robotic rover is on Mars transmitting data back to Earth. 60 megabits from Mars takes 1.5 hours to 5 hours to reach Earth. And then there's days where it takes 8 hours to receive a text message from my neighbor in my rural farm community. There wasn't a law restricting the amount of terms a president could serve until 1951. 30 presidents only served 2 terms out of respect for George Washington and tradition. I'm a bit late to the game, but I have to add this one. We never actually touch anything. When something gets close to the atoms that make us, it gets repelled by electromagnetism. So when you're holding something in, say, the palm of your hand, it's actually suspended tiny fractions of millimeter from your hand by electromagnetic force. The way your family tree severely collapses when you look back a reasonable 50 number of generations. I hope this explanation is clear. You have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, and so on. In general, if you look n generations back, there are 2n plus 2 people who are your n great-grandparents. Let's generously say a generation is 30 years. If you look back 40 generations, to around the year 800 CE, you have 242 great-grandparents. That's well over 4 trillion people, more people than were alive in 800 CE, by several orders of magnitude. More people than have ever been alive. The reason this is possible: if you looked at a list of your 242 great-grandparents, you'd see duplicates. In fact, each name would show up around 10,000 times, possibly even more. So your mom's dad's dad is the same as your dad's dad's dad. And in fact you can trace your ancestry to that guy in about 10,000 different ways. How we landed on the moon and built the SR-71 with a computing power of my TI-89. Also how when we design things now, solutions get to the point where they are limited by the precision of the computer, where the round-off errors of a computer starts to matter. Roads. There is a network of massively lit roads, all of which perfectly smooth, just hard enough and just sticky enough to roll on it at marvelous speed. Its paths spanning in all direction and through any and every landscape, even underground, all across every continent, linking almost every single place that are or could be human related. In my life, I will almost never leave the network, as the vast majority of my time will be spent on it, or in a building or a similarly adapted terrain connected to that said network. Almost every roads on a given continent are connected, and, if I wanted to, I could get on that network in front of my window, in North America, and emerge at the other side of the earth, at the southernmost point of South America. Also, if I am willing to take an unpitched road, I could get to the northernmost point in my province of Quebec, Canada, where a research center is seated. Also, every roads that are not physically connected, are connected by boats and flying machines. The entire recorded career of the Beatles, from Please Please Me to Let It Be, only spans a bit more than 7 years. The 22nd of March 1963. Please Please Me the 8th of May 1970, Let It Be. It's actually shorter, a bit more than 6 years, when you consider that Let It Be was actually recorded in early '69 before Abbey Road. Let It Be was assembled by the label and released long after they had ceased to be a band. Sagan's number: let's say there's a billion planets out there and only 1 in a billion developing life. That means there's a billion life-bearing planets, and then you realize there are a lot more planets than a billion, and you must come to the conclusion that we are not alone. Try to imagine a life without timekeeping. You probably can't. You know the month, the year, the day of the week. There is a clock on your wall or the dashboard of your car. You have a schedule, a calendar, a time for dinner or a movie. Yet all around you, timekeeping is ignored. Birds are not late. A dog does not check its watch. Deer do not fret over passing birthdays and alone measures time. Man alone chimes the hour. And, because of this, man alone suffers a paralyzing fear that no other creature endures. A fear of time running out. What real life
Goodbye.